Hi everybody, and welcome back to Hex Token Channel. Your host Superman in the house. Here is our fourth video in the PULSECHAIN series. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and of course, let's get into it. What happens when PULSECHAIN launches? Let's check it out. Let us go. Hope you like that rebranded SpaceX rocket there with PULSECHAIN. That's where we're going, folks. We're going to the moon, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get into it, folks. And of course, PULSECHAIN expected launch process. The first thing that's going to come up, of course, Richard's going to have to choose a block height to fork a PULSECHAIN. So we need, obviously, take Ethereum chain. We're going to fork that with PULSECHAIN. We're going to need a block height for that. We've currently got one running for the current public test network for PULSECHAIN. So we're going to need one of those. Of course, that's going to have to be gamified, and exactly when that's going to happen. Once, of course, that block height is chosen, that means that all the wallets on it, over 200 million at the moment on Ethereum, will get copied over to PULSECHAIN, as well as all the assets there with ERC20s, ERC 721s, and ERC 1155s, and all the other contracts getting copied over to PULSECHAIN as PRC20s and 721s and 1155s. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, this is going to be the biggest airdrop in crypto history. It's going to be absolutely moving on to a full proof of staking chain. It's going to be absolutely epic, and we're looking forward to that. Now, obviously, then Richard's going to have to call the PULSECHAIN launch date and, of course, launch. And, of course, he may or may not give notice to that. We're going to see his gamification around that, and we will find out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And he may just say, hey, look, it's already up and running, and go for gold, which is probably what's going to happen there. Now, obviously, when it does launch, it's going to have to ramp up. I mean, it's going to start with a couple of validators, going to head towards 33 or more validators. And, of course, that takes maybe up to 2 weeks to happen. And, of course, as it does, that's going to get faster and faster until it gets to the ideal time around about 3-second blockchains. It's going to be a lot of fun to see that. Now, we're going to see more validators jump in there. And, of course, people will be able to stake with that. It's going to be cool. PULSECHAIN launch. An AMM bot's going to run. Automatic market maker bot's going to run and harvest multiple DEXs. We know at least Uniswap, SushiSwap, and potentially Balancer and Bancor, and maybe others getting harvested there as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, the AMM bot, multiple DEXs harvesting. And, of course, those are going to be the ETH pairs, right? So the ETH pairs going to get harvested. And it's going to be exciting to see that. And of course, we're expecting probably around about a ratio of about 1.2 million polls per one ETH there for the ETH pairs. And that could potentially be up to about 2.25 PLS mint there. So maybe somewhere between 1 and 3 trillion pulse expected to be minted in that process. We'll find out. All right, cool. And number 4, of course, is you can also think of the AMM bot like the first trade as well. Number 4 there, PulseX liquidity pairs. Obviously, they'll all be set up after the AMM bot runs. It's kind of like the first trade, sets up those liquidity pairs. And then, of course, we're likely to see a lot of other pairs set up as well with the Pulse and PulseX and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're expecting the AMM bot pairs. We're expecting the specialized custom project pairs set up as well, including PulseX and all that. And, of course, we could have very large liquidity in those pools and potentially bonded to the ETH chain there as well, particularly for Hex. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. All right, so everything's going to start with 0, of course. And then, of course, then we're going to stake PLS for validators and stake Hex. Some of this may occur at the same time, of course. We're going to stake PLS with validators and stake Hex. And people will be able to do all that sort of stuff too. The next, of course, we're going to have ratio trading 1 to 2 days. And at the beginning here, a vague launch to avoid gaming, of course. And, of course, people will be who have got the airdrop, in other words, got the copies on PULSECHAIN with the PRC20s, 721s, etc., will be able to do ratio trading of some form for most pairs. And, of course, sacrifice as well. If you've got sacrifice with Pulse and PLSX, you'll be able to do some ratio trading. That's going to be very risky and very volatile, I imagine, until we get a lot of stables coming through with the bridge. And that brings me up to the bridge opens up probably a day or two, probably later. And, of course, remember, everything's starting from 0. So, obviously, letting a day go by would be pretty nice for that. And with the airdrop, and, of course, dollars and liquidity. So, we're going to see a lot of dollars, stable coins come over, and, of course, run through all the liquidity pools that have been set up by the AMM bot and custom pairs and things like that. And we'll get a third type of pair, sort of the bridge pairs coming over, including the Hex linkage as well, which could be a very big liquidity. There are a few wildcard things as well to consider. There was $660 million in stable coins through the sacrifice periods for Pulse and PulseX. Let's see what happens to that money. And, of course, that's a pretty nice base for liquidity. We will see, though. No expectations, of course, what happens there. So very exciting. That's kind of the launch process overall. And of course, we got PulseX trading, liquidity farms and pools up and running very fast. Supply and demand will turn the price levels. Everything starts off at 0 at the Pulse launch. You get priced up pretty fast. But the M-Bot's kind of like that first trade, setting up all the liquidity pools, harvesting the ETH and swapping that with PLS. And of course, locking that into PulseX can be pretty exciting. Very cool. That is kind of the process there. And then we're going to jump over to the timeline. This timeline, all those things happening, of course, but that's kind of over the first day or two. And of course, once that's all up, everything is able to run. So PulseChain launch. And then, of course, we're going to be getting into the automatic market maker. But we'll also probably have, at a similar time period, we'll have validators and stake PLS. But remember, validators will start off with the teams validators, maybe about 3, maybe more. And, of course, they'll ramp up with independent validators like David Feather and Hodl Dog and How to Pulse and Liquid Loans and people like that. And, of course, the more and more come on. It takes about 48 hours to upload the code and the blockchain up to the fork height point. And then, of course, they're able to also add that speed. And instead of starting around 13, 14 seconds, say, for block, getting up to 3-second blocks once we get more and more validators. And, of course, ensuring that entropy, randomness, and everything else is going well with the consensus on the blockchain. Now, there may be a few little surprises around there because of the code being written in Go language. They may have get covered up on a few bit of bot issues and stuff like that. So we'll be looking forward to any enhancements. Then after that, of course, we're going to have the PulseX ratio trading 1 or 2 days. That's all going to happen pretty quickly. Obviously, you can't do ratio trading until you've got the PulseX and automatic market bot running. So that's going to happen as well. And then, of course, finally, we'll have that PulseChain bridge open 1 or 2 days later, and a lot of stable coins coming in. So pre-bridge, we'll have the AMM bot pairs that harvested the ETH for Pulse, and of course, we'll have custom pairs set up. And then, of course, once that bridge open, well, the third type of pairs coming in, the bridge pairs, and of course, that's going to be exciting for Hex in particular with the wrapped ETH. And I imagine that pools are going to be pretty tied together, pretty big as well. We will wait and see, of course, ultimately. That is a quick summary of that process. And of course, this was a look at the starting PulseChain ecosystem. Of course, we're going to have, we've got all this on testnet at the moment, so you can actually play around with it on testnet. This is kind of what we're expecting to have running up when we go live. PulseChain Block Explorer, the PulseX DEX, of course, these are links you can currently play with at the moment. Hex staking, of course, go.hex.com. And of course, Pulse staking validators, you can do that already. And the PulseChain bridge there, PulseRAM. So those are all the kind of the key components, and possibly we might also have third-party bridges and dApps as well. So that's just a quick summary, a simplified overview. Obviously, there could be a few extra things that Richard's got planned, but that's kind of a good summary there. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, hit the bell, and check out all the rest of the PulseChain video series as well. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.